Welcome to Designing the Future. This series is a space for dialogue, reflection, and imagination, where Indigenous voices lead the way in rethinking the systems that shape our lives. From education and healthcare to governance, economies, and beyond, we'll explore how Indigenous knowledge, lived experience, and cultural wisdom can guide us towards a more inclusive and equitable tomorrow. The conversations you'll hear are grounded in story and spirit. They are not just ideas, but lived realities that carry both resilience and responsibility. Some of what we share may be sensitive, as it touches on histories of harm, systemic inequities, and ongoing struggles faced by Indigenous peoples. We encourage you to listen with openness and care, and to remember that healing and transformation come through truth, respect, and relationship. This is not simply a podcast or a video series. It's an invitation to imagine new possibilities, to engage critically, and to act collectively. Together, let's design a future that honors Indigenous knowledge and creates space for equity, dignity, and respect for all. I'm your host, Laura Mueller, and this is Designing the Future. Thank you for joining me. So we are here today for my podcast, Designing the Future. And we're going to be talking about Indigenous entrepreneurship and economic sovereignty. And I have with me today Zandra Ross. She's been one of my dear friends for many years, and she is just a powerhouse. We know that she's well known in the community, not just within our community, but many communities. So I will let you introduce yourself to the viewers.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Laura. To say I'm so proud of you and all the things that you're doing, because I truly believe the glory of one is the glory of all for our people. And I want you to thank you for being that leader and giving all of us the courage to dream big and do new things. So I want to thank you. Pardon me. I have been working in primarily First Nations and Indigenous communities for, you get excited about saying how many years you've done something, and then all of a sudden you hit that year and you go, holy smokes, it's been about 30 years since I've been working in our communities. But as well, that's translated into working with government and industry and different businesses, organizations, teams like that. Really, I started out as a facilitator. I started out doing a lot of strategic planning, organizational development, worked for another well-known Indigenous consultant, and really just cut my teeth on working in communities. And as the years progressed, it was like, well, what do we need? What can I do? What is my specialty? And so now what I love to say that my primary obligation, responsibility is to help our people dream again. Mm-hmm. Because I truly believe that we are in short due to our trauma, due to all of the historical impacts of colonization and things that have happened. It's been difficult to know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. Are we going to be able to make a decision for ourselves? So right now we are in this epoch of this amazing time where we are ready to go. And so how do I do that is through workshop facilitation, motivational speaking, coaching, still some strategic planning, but really helping people to heal their trauma, but do it through laughter. So really what I like to call myself is an entertainer. I love to entertain and I love to train, because I believe trauma has been so rooted. We're so afraid of it too, because it has been such a painful thing to work through. But I really believe that we can do it with love and joy and excitement and passion.
Well, and so I had the pleasure of being on a panel with you through the University of Northern British Columbia. And that was kind of a question that we asked was, what are we seeing in the communities? What is kind of that underlying theme and current for Indigenous communities, Indigenous entrepreneurs, Indigenous professionals? And through your lived experience, what are you seeing are the biggest barriers right now?
So two pieces that I work. I mean, we both know that it's a multi-headed beast that we're dealing with. But in my kind of neck of the woods, there's kind of two pieces that I've been seeing. And so one is what other people in the world might call emotional intelligence, which I call emotional indigenuity. And really, why? Because you don't have all the answers. And because of trauma and poverty and addiction and abuse and all of these things, racism, poverty. We've lost that a lot of times, that understanding of self-awareness and really learning self-hatred about ourselves, not being able to love ourselves. So seeing that and what happens is then we begin to fear each other when we don't understand ourselves, when we can't live in our own skin. So we don't always have all those soft skills, as other people call them, but really you and I are integral to the development and the progress of our communities. That, so, and really, what is the heart of that? Being stuck in fight or flight.
Yes.
Right? That's so much
Yes.
about of our history is, like cave people, do we need to fight it? Do we need to hide from it? Do we need to run from it? And so history, we are now at this history when we've all got these giant prefrontal cortexes and things, but trauma has basically kept our brains stuck in this fight or flight. So that is one of the big pieces that I feel is really huge in what we're doing. And other people think it's business plans, and that is a huge
Yeah.
piece of it too.
Absolutely.
But you and I really both know it's really at the soul, the core level, the spirit level.
Yes.
And like I said before, it's such a scary thing to think of healing.
Yep.
And it's also about vulnerability and being able to say that this wasn't my fault. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can come back from this.
Yeah. And, I've worked a lot with Indigenous entrepreneurs, and that's basically what my research has shown me. We know that access to capital, financial literacy are the biggest barriers. But what we're really asking for is community and healing. And so how do we articulate that? What to you is community? What does that mean?
What is community? It's people will look at it from a modern perspective or a cultural or a traditional perspective. And I believe in this day and age, it's a bridge. It's a bridge between the two worlds.
Yes.
And being a person in my family of mixed heritage and the first person in my entire family not to go to any form of residential school or Indian day school, it's about finding this connection between the two worlds. And I think that's where a lot of our difficulty, our strain right now is thinking that, no, we have to be, you're either one or the other. And we'll beat each other up with that. But really, it's about finding that connection, that doorway between the two worlds. And so, and that is another piece. I love what you talked about, the Indigenous entrepreneur, because that is really our future, is business development in our
Yes.
communities, on top of the healing and all that. But really, so yes, working at one of our universities in 2 Indigenous entrepreneurship programs, there was all this work around the hard skills, we'll say, the business planning and all that. So I'd get brought in near the end of the program. They'd call me the Valley of Despair, because they'd all be overwhelmed and holy smokes, is this for me? And so I would come in and do emotional indigenuity for Indigenous entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, this breath of fresh air, this life. It was like CPR for them at that point to go, because traditionally, we don't talk about that kind of stuff in post-secondary institutions. And we both know, you as a very successful post-secondary institute, me in a previous lifetime, that confidence, self-motivation, your favorite talk is self-efficacy, being able to focus in, but also to be able to be okay with mistakes. Be okay. I never like to use the word failure, because we beat ourselves up. That is learning. That is what the rest of the world gets to do. And they don't have to be scared of it or afraid of it. They just do it. And that's what we need to do.
Well, and I think, it's so funny, because through my journey, I was constantly seeking permission. And I kept asking people, it's like, am I allowed to do this? Is it okay to do this? And I think we need to be able to give ourselves that permission. We have this internalized paternalism and all of these identity issues. So, that was one of the big things that came up, is just issues with identity as well, right?
Hugely so. I think it's amazing being a person. I joke about it all the time, as you know, but that's a nickname I've had in some of my circles, is Super Indian Barbie.
Yep.
And because of the way I look, I don't look necessarily like all of my other family members, but I also act and think differently.
Yep.
Because I still have the residential school residue all over me.
Yep.
But I'm like a flower that could have been planted in not so healthy soil. But I was really blessed that my family, the people that cared about me, almost like they threw me over into another plot, into another garden to say, we need you to do something different. We need you to grow differently than us. And that can be hard because we both know in our communities being different, that's a struggle. Why? Because of trauma, because it wasn't valued, uniqueness and individuality and hopes and dreams and goals. That was kind of taken away from me, kind of beaten out of you, and just be like everyone else.
Well, and I mean, I've had other students come up to me, and I had a Métis individual, and we had that same conversation because he wanted permission to be himself. And the fact is, we can't be anybody but ourselves, right? It's not possible. And one of the biggest things I keep hearing from all of these people, and again with the research, is that we want representation. We want to see Indigenous people everywhere and in as many places as possible. How do you think that we can help move the needle with that?
So I think we need this awareness in every program, everything that everyone is doing, all of these amazing things that are being put in place for us right now, that there are helpers out there, us, but as well as other people, not of our culture. And so ensuring that whenever these programs are developed, first of all, having people like you sitting on these higher committees, these higher levels, especially in post-secondary business, those types of things, to be able to let them know, as much as we are ready to move into post-secondary and do all these things, we still need that soft skill help. We still need that confidence booster. And some people may say, well, you're in post-secondary and you should be doing it. Well, yeah, in a perfect world. But we're not starting on an equal playing field. No. We're starting with this huge diversity in life experiences and safety, feeling culturally safe, but just even feeling safe as a human being to be in a room, like let alone even culturally.
Yes.
So being aware that we are going to need a little bit more help, our confidence. And again, we both know we don't want to paint that paintbrush because there are lots of us out there. But even those high achievers and those high developers, we all have the residential school residue on us. Yeah. We're all still learning and moving and working through grief, always. Even if we haven't experienced it, we know that biological component to grief in the fabric of our bodies, right?
Yes. And so part of self-efficacy, part of it is physiological aspects, so in the body. And it hasn't really been studied within Indigenous nations, but we know that it's actually thought to be one of the lesser relevant aspects of self-efficacy. But I think we're way off base when it comes to Indigenous people.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend who's super successful, and she talked about how she constantly has these cortisol dumps. I didn't even know what it was before she had that conversation. And often we're afraid to be seen. We get very overwhelmed. All of this anxiety and this fear of being seen. And this is, a huge barrier why we're not showing up in these rooms and why we're not present within these committees or so how can we actually, especially in a community aspect, how can we start addressing that?
My goodness, I think it's tough because there's a huge component of self-direction, right? Self-efficacy, that's what we come back to. I love when you began speaking deep. I'm like, that is such a huge part of it. And that's why I love the concept of the medicine wheel and being that able to apply that and looking at it isn't just one piece. It isn't just, it's a path, right? Yeah. So being able to look at all of the quadrants of us. So for example, and you can overlay anything we know with the medicine wheel. For me, it's the emotional indigenuity. So it's the self-awareness, it's the self-management, it's the social awareness and the social management. So what are my traumas and triggers? What do I love? What do I not love? Because so many of us are doing things because that's what we were told to do, or that's what we were told all we could do. So overcoming that fear and really getting excited to dream again, really get encouraging people to say, like what I say to my kids right now, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I go, well, let's just try some things. They're like, well, you go to post-secondary. I'm like, well, how do you know until you try?
Yeah.
So what I'd rather you do is start with something, try it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to beat you up. But if you don't, so bringing down that fear level for people that it's either a pass or a fail. It's either a pass or a hard fail. Well, that doesn't work for the trauma-informed brain, right? Like the trauma-developed brain. We need a safe zone. We need to experience practice, if that makes sense, in being in a safe zone.
Yes,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense? Like
Yes.
being able to go, well, I don't know how to do this. That honestly, I look back, one of the most formative things that happened for me. I was on my way to go to university in Victoria. I just wanted to go back, wanted to go there so bad. Went to school. My band had sent me there for a year. I wanted to go back. And so my family, being afraid of me being on my own, was like, can you just stop in Prince George? Just, you've got family there, and let's not move on from it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know where that is. I guess, okay. And so I came here, and wonderful enough, I had a kind of a as all of our extended family, right? Not totally a family, but an extended family. A mentor that I had, Dan George, very wonderful person, heard I was in town and said, hey, I'm in charge of the Friendship Center. Would you like to come and sit as a youth board member or come get involved with us? And I was like, I don't know anything about that. I can't do that. That's a grown-up thing. I don't know how to do this. And what he said to me was, no, we don't expect anything of you.
Yeah.
We just want you to come and learn. Come have lunch with us. We have a meal. And I was like, so I don't need to know anything. It's like, no, we'll teach you. That's our whole point. And it was like, okay, I guess I can do that. And it changed my life.
Yeah.
That is one of the core memories, things that maybe I didn't get as a child or those things. But somebody gave me that opportunity and said, don't worry about it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anything except yourself. And that's when I realized that authenticity, our inner gifts, even though those had been, be quiet, you're too this, you're too that, you're too extra, you're too much. Yeah. Now it was like, oh no, we need that.
Yeah.
We need that. That's important. And so having that safe place for people to practice and not even to fail, just to be there. Having people, well, why don't you come and sit in as a thing? Fitness was another. That's a previous life, because it's all part of the medicine wheel. Like you said, the physical, the mental, all of it is part of growth. But even people would come to me in the studio and say, yeah, I don't think that's for me. And I go, well, how do you know? And I go, why don't you come and sit and watch? And they would look at me like I was crazy. And I'd say, they go, you can do that? Asking for it. And I go, well, of course. How are you going to know if you like my style, if what you think of the class? And every single time they would come and sit a chair, and within 20 minutes, I'd have them up out of the chair and they'd be working out in the class.
Yep.
Because they felt that safety. So I think that's it, is inviting, but also letting people know you don't need to know anything. Yeah. That's okay. We want you here because we want you as an individual, as a human being. And for so many of us, we feel that's not enough.
Yeah.
But it's invaluable.
Well, and mentorship is one of the biggest key components that keeps coming up. And we know that there's programs and resources available, but often they're underutilized. So how are we missing the mark with mentorship?
Oh, so this is part of it, because the work that I do in our communities, I've worked in probably 80 First Nations communities throughout my career, something like that. The most difficult thing is where we look for the mentors, and yes, the most experienced people in your community. Well, when you've got a leadership team of 5 people,
yes,
and half of them are self-taught, and again, but if we look at a small community governance system, and everyone wants the chief to mentor them. Well, yes, everyone wants the band administrator. Well, unfortunately, those are our CPR. Those are our emergency responders in the community. So everybody wants the band office to be the training ground, the mentorship ground. Unfortunately, in our structures, for a lot of them, it's not possible, because everybody is already working 24/7 to stop these gaps, to save lives. So then all of a sudden, they don't want to do anything for us. Well, I'm not going to bother asking. I tried to ask for mentorship or help and they're not there. So we need to start looking at, from my experiences, it almost as and I don't want to say a program, but where we look for people that have it. So I belong to I don't even want to call it a mentorship group. It's a bunch of leaders, business leaders, business entrepreneurs in the community. And we just come together, and nobody's any smarter. We're all just business people. And you get a hot seat and somebody gets to say, this is a problem I'm dealing with in my business, right? We call it masterminds, things like that. And everyone was kind of nervous at first, like, oh, do I need to know? Well, I don't know their business. I'm like, no, we're just here to brainstorm. So somebody'd be in the hot seat. This is my problem. Social media. I'm dealing with bad media. Whatever is going on in your shoe, capital, whatever. And then everybody else, once they put their problem out, everybody else at the table gets to give their 2 cents.
Yeah.
If I were you, this is what I would do. And some of us don't even know. We're just almost asking questions. Well, what does that mean? And it helps really clarify the problem for the person. And every single person walks away going, oh my goodness. On both sides, the people that are giving advice, because we all realize we are superheroes and we have so much to give. But when there's no expectation, and that's what trauma does to us, it gives us this fear. We're not good enough. We're not perfect. It can be imperfection. Some people call it imposter syndrome. And then there's other people who are like, that's not a word. Like, even in mental health, it's amazing if you watch TikTok how people are beaten up. Oh, you have ADHD. That's a made up thing. Oh, you have anxiety. That's we're even in this extremist in everything. Right? Whether it be politics, whether it be mental health, it's all these extremes. And you're either right or wrong. Well, why can't I try? It's like food to me. I want to try a little bit of everything. How am I going to know what's going to work for me to heal or to get smarter or to get stronger? So I think having more opportunities for people to have safe on-roading, having drop-in day at post-secondary institutes. You don't know if you want? Come on, we've got a fun day that you're going to get to go just sit in on classes or get to participate. You know, like when we were kids in school and you would do mock this and mock that. Well, why can't we do that as adults? Why don't we give people that safe place to practice something, to even know if they're going to want to do it? Because that, honestly, I haven't necessarily had people like you to teach me all the things because we haven't come from that. We're that first generation that is finding our way. And thankfully, we've had some safe places to fall and get up and had people, not even who we thought were going to be our mentors. And that's part of it too. We put so much pressure on other Indigenous people to be perfect, to be this, to be that, when really we're all kind of in the same process.
Oh, that hits.
Right?
Yeah.
So why am I looking, and we've been through, well, no, I need you to be this way for me. Yeah. When holy smokes, we're both in the same thing. So what I really admire about the work you're doing is going out and finding those people.
Yeah.
You're not staying content and stuck. And that's what so many of us do is, well, this is all I have. And it's like what I tell clients with counselors. They'll go, oh, I tried counseling. And I'm like, really? Did you marry the first person you met? Right? Like counseling, all of these things are about, no, you don't know if it's the right thing.
Yeah.
That's why healing can be scary and hard because there isn't a straight path.
Yeah.
And it's the same for personal development, business development. But I think trauma has made us know. And that to me is the perfectionism and the imposter syndrome. I don't know what that perfect path is. These other people know, and it's all a lie. It's all a fairy tale.
Well, and I think that we have this preconceived notion that we're not allowed to fail.
Yes.
And because we're carrying so much weight for ourselves, for our people, for our family. And you're right. We haven't done this before. We don't necessarily have the supports and resources. I was just reading something where there were like 12 Indigenous counselors within the region or within that, like on quite a wide scale. And I'm like, that's wild that there's still, I had the opportunity at a conference not too long ago to meet one of the first PhD professionals, Indigenous, so that's still a thing. We're still seeing the firsts of people. And that's why capacity is such an issue. And we need to kind of figure out, is it peer-to-peer? Because if we want community, we have to create the community. We have to develop it. And how do we actually, how do we start doing that? And again, if we're waiting for permission, then nobody's moving. So how do we just start? And we have to do it messy because we don't know what we want. We don't know what healing means. We don't know what community means for us from our lived experience. And it's going to be different whether you live on the reserve or you're urban. And yeah, how do we come together and start figuring out what we need or want?
Well, I think creating, it's funny. I think right now, this huge influx of Indigenous social media influencers, it's funny, it's a huge start. People are starting to see people that are doing different things. And other people think that influencing, I joke and I go, we're all influencers. Yeah. We're all trying to encourage people to do different things, to be different ways, but we want to beat up on it. We want to make it. So encouraging people, celebrating. A big thing in our community that I hear a lot when I'm dealing with it, people's fears is jealousy.
Yeah.
How do we deal with crabs in the bucket syndrome? What does that mean? And that was a question I just had in a workshop. And I'm like, well, my mom would tell me, because why do we beat each other up? Why we do? And I said, I think there's a few different prongs to it, that like to help each other to rise. I said, one, I asked my mom, I have two moms, right? My old mom, because she was in residential school a lot longer and a lot more the damaging years of it. And I'd say, what is crabs in the bucket? What does that mean to you? She said, well, when somebody would be, like something bad would happen and one of the leaders will say, I don't like, saying too much, but one of the leaders of the school would be mad at somebody. They'd have a bad day, they'd be mad. Or somebody would have broke something. You did not want those people on you because those, even though they were mean to us, they were cruel, they were the only parents we knew.
Yeah.
And so what we do, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's what she said. That's all we knew. So when they were mad at you, you wanted to get that off of you as soon as possible. You wanted to shove it and you wanted, or if you were in trouble, you were going to literally physically grab somebody with you to go, well, I wasn't by myself, because it was less scary to be in trouble with somebody else, or you're just throwing them out. You're just, hey man, I'm taking this off. And they said it was just too much. And so they became this thing of, who am I going to blame? Who am I going to point to take the attention, the negative attention away from me?
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. So that was one piece of it. Then as time went on, I hear so much about they're jealous of me, they're jealous of me, they're jealous of me. And I said it myself. I've had people, the number one fear that it's funny, when I work with entrepreneurs, the number one fear, you want to know what the number one fear that I've come to?
What's that?
They're afraid of what their cousins are going to say about them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or in the community.
Yeah.
Even though when I ask them, is that your ideal client? No, it's not my ideal client. Then what are you worried about it? But we've become so stuck in, what does everybody else think about me? We're like those racehorses that don't have our blinders on. We're looking around what everybody else is doing. So we come to that last piece. They're jealous of me. And I used to think, yeah, they are. And I jump right into the negative.
Yeah.
But then I realized, this is my biggest aha that I haven't talked to you about lately, is that I realized that jealousy, I think for our people and most people, it's a yearning.
Yeah.
It isn't, I don't want you to have that. I don't like you. For most of it's, I wish I could have that.
Yeah.
Whether that feeling, whether that thing, whether that partner, whatever. And so instead of looking at it as such, I'm like, it's a yearning.
Yeah.
They admire what you have. We just don't have the healthy skills, the communication skills to be able to say it.
Well, and I mean, how do we be Indigenous? And I mean, we're either not Indigenous enough, too Indigenous. I'd heard of a group, they created a group for white-facing Indigenous people because they have so many issues with, this is my identity, but who am I to claim that? Because I don't look. And there's a lot of, issues right now in the communities with pretendians and, being visibly Indigenous and racism and all of that. So that's part of the struggle with showing up is, am I going to be Indigenous enough
Yes.
to show up?
Yes. I have, I have a son who is so white. We joke about it, but he's like, man, I'm like pigmentally challenged, he'll say, right? He said, but he's 16 and he is so in love with his culture.
Yeah.
And my mom is super cultural. I've kind of lived, I've crossed the bridge, right? And so he's really stuck in the middle and he wants so bad. And I'm like, learn your culture, learn your family, learn, like, you can't prove it by the way you look.
Yeah.
And no one really can, because every Indigenous person has been mistaken for Spanish or French or like whatever in some other part of the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's even being from Canada, traveling the world, just got back. They know who you are because of the way you speak, the things you say. You don't even have to open your mouth, the way you act.
Yes.
And people go, wait a minute, you're from Canada, right?
Yeah.
I go, it's the same with being Indigenous.
Yeah.
You may not look it, but when we see other people in a store, what do? We give them a little nod.
It's so funny. I seen a post on social media about how you're Indigenous if you know who Victor is. But it's just one of those universal things, right? And I mean, it's not to say that you aren't if you don't.
No.
But it's really hard. And I think we're not going to get anywhere if we don't have these hard conversations, because we're so afraid to talk about what we're carrying and what we're holding. And we don't need to let it go. That's not the right way to put it. But we need to be able to share in a safe way and for others to witness that, for us to really move to a better place. Right? So.
Well, and like you said, recognition, identity, it's such a huge piece. And why, I'll give you a perfect example. And it really opened my eyes about the importance of the work and the visibility stuff that we're doing right now. We've talked about it for years. I do an activity of who am I, or what's my name, you know what I mean, an activity. So what I do is I go write down a whole bunch of famous people on stickies, and then we go stick it on everybody, and they have to ask questions of each other. You played it. Well, I sat there, and I'm trying to do a mix of famous people that everybody's going to know. Do you know how hard it was to find, how do I say it, recognizable Indigenous people that anybody in a group of 50 people would know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I won't even start even women. I won't even get started on that, let alone trying to find the list was imbalanced already between genders. It was there was so many easier, more visible, famous males to recognize, and I'm like getting people to help me. But then add to it being Indigenous, that list got very small.
Yeah.
Right? Just really people that would know. Even you and I of a certain generation will go, Chief Dan George. There's young people are, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Victor. You can talk, like, there are these cultural things that were icons to us that people don't know now. They're gone. That was, and that was another thing that I had a government person say at one point. They said, when are you going to have another Chief Dan George? I said, what? And I was very young at the time. But looking back on it now in our discussion, what he meant is, when are you going to have another cultural icon?
Yeah.
When are you going to start, when are your people going to start showing up and being those people that we recognize?
Wow.
So that, whatever you want to say, in some of the cases, the pretendians, they became pretendians because society needed them to be Indians. They needed somebody to go, oh, we are doing something. We do see this.
Yes.
And so they kind of went, okay, I'm the person. You look at Shania Twain.
Yeah.
She never said she was Native.
No.
They built up this story about her being raised. And she was raised by an Indigenous stepfather who raised on her, had all the same crap that we've dealt with. But you look back, it wasn't her. Yeah. It was, and we all know there's other famous examples for that are true.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But that's part of media. And we can look at it as that as a bad thing, or we go, hey, sister, this is our time to step up.
Yeah.
The world wants to see us.
Yes.
And in some ways, they're faking it because they want to see us so bad.
Yeah.
So,
oh, wow.
Right?
Yes.
How do we that's what I say. And I spent my whole life with my of people telling me to be quiet. I heard when we were little kids, when it was still very young, quit acting like a wild Indian.
Yeah.
Which meant be quiet, don't be noticed, stop it because that. And what I tell people now, I go, you know, that negative talk from our aunties, our grandmas, and we get down and we feel, I go, what I've also realized, that mean way that we've talked to each other is partially an unhealthy way of trying to keep each other safe.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
We're telling each other, don't do that because that didn't work for me, but I'm going to be mad with you about it because I'm also yearning. Yeah. I'm also kind of jealous that you get this opportunity. Yeah. And I was told I wasn't good enough, smart enough. So someone might tell you that, so I'm going to save you from all that heartache. Yeah. So that's part of it is this awareness. And that's why for me, for these topics we talk about, this emotional indigenuity, this self-efficacy, like that's the magic. Yeah. That if we can teach people everything they need to know in university, but like everyone, if we don't have that core, if we don't have that understanding, that self-love, that self-belief, that even, well, you know what? I don't know how to do this. That's why I like to call it indigenuity. Yep. I don't know how to do this. Nobody's done this before. Yep. But you and I are going to figure it out. Yeah. And that is magic. Like that. And that's the other thing is you and I both get a lot. You don't understand. You haven't lived it. You didn't live on reserve. That's an excuse. Yep. That's a way to keep us stuck. And you and I have to keep our blinders on and go, nope, you're not going to distract me from my purpose anymore. Yep. You're not going to make me feel like back in the bucket again. Or you're right, I'm not brown enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't speak the traditional language enough. I'm not jingle dancing. No, we get to decide. Yeah. When you said, what is community? What is identity? That's what we need everybody to stop waiting for this collective description of it. Yeah. What is it do you need to move you forward? What community do you want to be a part of? Because I don't want to go back. Yeah. I want, if I'm going to do, and that's what I've always done is gone back. And that's where we get stuck. I'm going forward and I'm holding my hand behind me, but I'm not stopping anymore. Yep. I need you to catch up. I need you to come with me and I'm going to take you with me. Yeah. But I'm not waiting anymore.
That's beautiful.
It's time. Today is the first day of the rest of our lives.
I think the space is here. We're asking for it. This is what we want. This is what's needed. And we just have to be brave enough to do it.
And you are. This is a first step, my friend, and I love it. Thank you. Thank you for doing this for all of us. Like, this is incredible. And like I said, as a person who's dealing with all the things, you give me the strength and the excitement and I can do this. If Laura can do this, I can do this.
Yeah. And I think that's just it. When you see these people, and I mean, everything that I do, with all the success that I've had, I've been afraid at every single step, but I just do it anyways. And I think that's what's needed right now. And then once we start working together and collaborating, that's where we're going to make change. It's already happening. How can we promote more of that, do more of that?
I love it, girl. You sang it to the choir. Let's do this.